I'm Richard Pyatt. Welcome back to the BC City Connection podcast. This is the City of Battle Creek official podcast from the City of Battle Creek City Hall. We're here talking with a number of folks who are doing good work at City Hall and around town. Today, talk about what I suspect to be one of the more popular areas of interest. That is code compliance. Jason Francisco's here, Code Compliance Manager at the City of Battle Creek. Hello, Jason.
Good morning, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. What is the purpose of code compliance? Let's get a broad understanding first, shall we?
Yeah. So code compliance addresses blight and nuisance ordinances throughout the city. We also focus on minimum housing code standards. We have a rental ordinance. We look at vacant and abandoned properties, dangerous buildings, inoperable vehicles, rental registration, kind of a broad area to address.
Yeah, I think sometimes folks think of code compliance as a kind of a pain in the neck, right? Oh boy, here comes code compliance. But really, what you've described addresses a number of things, right? The overall safety of a neighborhood, the overall minimum requirements to have things aesthetically look correct, but also there's probably some safety in that too. You talked about abandoned vehicles and blighted buildings and things like this. The city has to have an understanding of what the situation is, doesn't it?
Sure, and that's oftentimes it's I don't know. I didn't know that I couldn't do that. So this is an opportunity that we can send a letter to say, hey, this is what we need to correct. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that it's not like we're out to get them. If we've got to make a correction, then we've got to make a correction. And if you need some help, we're here to work with you through it. Give our office a call. If you don't know, we're here to explain it to you and what you can and what you can't do.
Yeah, that's an important point to make, right? That it's not just about pointing out things you need to do and then see you later. You're ready to talk with them about some of the resources that are available that can help. And toward the end of this conversation, we'll talk about a big one, and that has to do with free paint. So we'll get to that. You talked about the idea that the office is also a resource, and in that, it can be a situation in which you help folks avoid a scam.
Sure. It's best to give our office a call. I don't want to say that we hate to be the bad guys, but there are scams in today's world, right? And you get online and you see this picture of this beautiful house, and you're going to buy this beautiful house and pack up everything you own and come to Battle Creek. Well, the worst thing in the world is for us to hear that you came to Battle Creek because you sold everything, and now that house has been demolished 4 or 5 years ago, and really you just bought a vacant lot.
Oh my goodness.
So give our office a call. Let's talk about any sort of open enforcements. Is this property on the dangerous buildings list? Does this property even have an occupancy permit? Where can we immediately move into it, or is it going to require a bunch of repairs before we can even move into it?
We should emphasize that the example you talked about is not fabricated. This actually happened. Someone saw a house in Battle Creek online that they believed to be for sale. They bought it. They sold everything they owned on the other side of the country and came here and found out the house had been demolished years ago, and they really bought a vacant lot that was a fraction of what they paid. So we're not making this up. This happens.
Right. And, they bring in their paperwork, and here's a picture of the house. I recognize the house right away. And they sit down at the table with us and they say, we were on the street, we're looking for the house. We see numbers on the lower end. We see numbers on the higher end. Our house should be right here in the middle, and it's just a vacant lot.
My goodness, what a horrible experience for them.
Absolutely devastating.
Let's be clear. You're saying if you're interested in a home, before you take any steps toward it, particularly if you're at some distance, the code compliance office can be one of the first calls, right? And understand, here's the address. What's happening with this property?
Yeah, we may not be able to give you all the specifics and outline all the violations, but we can at least tell you that are there any open enforcements? Is it in the dangerous buildings process? Yep, this house looks clear and it's good to go. We don't we don't want to be the enemy. We want to be helpful. We want to make sure that everybody's doing their due diligence. Making sure that they're calling the water department to look for delinquent water bills. That if assessing if there's additional fines or anything like that on their taxes. Just let's not make sure that we're not having any surprises where all of a sudden, I bought this house. I was thinking that, I spent my last 50,000 when in fact, it may need some repairs and I can't even move into it.
Yeah, and you didn't budget for that.
Right, right.
Yeah, that is a huge resource in Battle Creek in the code compliance office to avoid a really difficult situation like that. Now, I say you, I mean, the code compliance office does help residents understand about what code compliance means specifically to them because you're looking at properties all the time, right?
We are. So, we try to be as proactive as we can. Oftentimes we're reactive with complaints, but every single year we take a third of the city and we do what's called as property surveys. That's a exterior inspection of every single property that's within the city limits, looking for peeling paint, broken windows, junk and trash, inoperable vehicles. This allows us that in that 3-year cycle that we can see every single house. It doesn't matter if you live on the north side, the south side, the east side. We can at least put eyes on every single house.
What comes out of that? So you look at them, you see some things that might be issues. What happens next?
Yep. So our office will send out a notice if it's a junk and trash notice or if it's an order to repair. Um, this is a notice that gives you time to make those repairs. And even in that, if you can't make those certain repairs by a certain time, then there's some appeal process and to ask for some more time. And it's not to say you've got 14 days to do it, and on day 15 you're going to get a citation. It, we know that life happens, right? And maybe I need an extra weekend because I can't get my buddies over to help paint until the following weekend or something. That's in the long story is one extra weekend it's not going to hurt anything. So it's much easier to work with the resident than to work against them.
What if the property is not owner occupied? Does that present a challenge?
So we have a rental ordinance where we do rental inspections. Those inspections are done at least every 3 years. And if no violations are found, it could be done like a 6-year permit every 6 years. So same process that the same upkeep, the same minimum housing code standards applies to my house, your house, the rental house, the house next door. So it doesn't matter where you live. I mean, they all have the same requirements.
So you probably can call to mind a few examples, at least, of these third of the community each year that are being looked at, and you've seen some kind of issue that, when addressed, solves maybe a safety issue or otherwise. And I would imagine sometimes you meet homeowners who say, "Oh, I didn't know." Right? It's about education.
Yeah, and it's their own house. They walk in and out of that front door all the time, but never looked up on the left side of the house to realize that we've got some peeling window trim that needs to be taken care of before the window starts to rot. And it could be maybe the neighbor that has their garbage cans at the curb all the time. I didn't know that I had to take them back to the house, or the gentleman that has a car for sale in the front yard. Well, I didn't know that I couldn't park cars in the front yard. I didn't know there was an ordinance that prohibited that. So oftentimes it's just a good time it's kind of like a meet and greet. If everybody was outside, we could stop and talk to everybody. But, oftentimes the communication starts with a letter.
You probably also hear residents, when you do talk to them, say, "Well, I'm concerned about that property over there or this over here," and they start telling you about other things that concern them, right?
Yeah. Yep. And that's the great thing about property surveys is when we go down the street, we're doing all 30 houses on that street. We're not coming to just yours and then 5 houses down. And even when we get complaints called in, it doesn't make sense to go out to Urbandale and make a 10-minute drive out there and look at one specific house. We're gonna take a look at the entire street, because if that same violation is identified at other houses, it makes sense to address them while we're there.
Absolutely. Right. Is there something that is particularly popular that is a code violation that you run into most?
Um, peeling paint's a big one.
It is the
Um,
paint, yeah.
Part of the property maintenance code talks about lawn mowing too, and the requirement to keep your lawn mowed under 9 inches. Just last summer alone, we took about 1,450 complaints of overgrown lawn. You know,
Wow.
um, we have a great compliance rate, but there are those lots that there's 21,000 parcels here in Battle Creek, and not every owner is local, and not everybody knows that I've got to mow my lawn. So there are some of those things, but a lot of it is junk and trash, peeling paint, things like that.
Talk about for a second why the city is concerned about grass that's too long.
Well, grass that's too long oftentimes harbors raccoons and possums, and when it gets so overgrown, you can't see the trash that's in it, and the neighbor calls because it looks bad, and then it starts to stink. And a lot of these houses or a lot of these properties that we go to is, believe it or not, grass is 3 and 4 feet tall. So no one knows what's hiding in there.
Yeah, and got to handle that carefully when you finally go in with a mower.
Right,
Not
right.
sure what's in there. Yeah. So that is part of it too. And of course, if grass is long, that has detrimental perception to the whole neighborhood, doesn't it?
Right, right. It's that one house, that broken window theory, where one house isn't being taken care of, and then, well, nobody cares. Well, then here's the next house that's not being taken care of, and now the next house, and now all of a sudden we on one street we've got 6 or 8 houses that just appears that nobody cares, nobody takes care of them.
Yeah. And it has a tendency to snowball and affect other people. And of course, now if you're living in that neighborhood, you have a concern potentially about the value of your home. Maybe you're taking care of yours, but if the neighborhood is perceived to be one that isn't cared for, then that affects even the ones that are diligent, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Now you talked about peeling paint. Talk about that issue. So I imagine that when that happens, there might be a reason for that. And by that, I mean uh, it, maybe it's just not in the budget to buy paint and get it done. Or maybe someone is not physically able to paint their own house. So these are all challenges, right?
Right. With today's economy, nothing's getting any cheaper. We're finding out that, I mean, even paint, when we used to be able to buy $20 worth of gallon of paint, is now $50, $60, $70. And that's a big challenge. And we hear that when we send out a violation to scrape and paint the house, that I would if I can afford it, but you know what? That's going to be $600, $700 that I need to use for the car repair or to eat or my medications or something. So back in 2017, we came up with this paint program that said, you know what? We hear this a lot. People want to paint, but it's the financial burden of I just can't afford it.
So what did you do about it?
So we kind of said, all right, let's see if we can find some money. Let's see. We had a local paint supplier here that did recycled paint, so we started with them, and we started the program with them. The very first year, we took 103 vouchers. The very first year in 2017. Um, uh, the recycled paint business is finally gone or has gone out of business. So we partnered with Springfield Do It Center down on Dickman Road, down
Sure.
by the Honda dealership. So we're continuing with them. Um, you know, it it doesn't necessarily need to be 10 gallons. Maybe you only need a gallon to paint the garage door. Maybe you need 5 gallons to paint one side of the house. Some of the larger homes on the north side that maybe take 12 gallons, well, then maybe we can figure out that, yeah, let's use 10 gallons first and maybe try to throw in another 2 or 3 gallons. But again, you're talking five, six, $700 worth of paint that is free, right? I mean, it's got to be owner occupied, and you have to have a violation, and you have to be able to complete the work within 60 days. There are no income requirements.
Wow.
It's a great program. Last year we've kind of dwindled down. Last year we gave out like 35 vouchers. I want to start giving out 105 vouchers again.
Yeah. So this is just Richard's prognostication here, but I would think it's just a matter of awareness, right? People just don't know about this.
Right. I mean, the mayor talks about it on his Saturday morning show. We have code officers that go to our neighborhood planning council meetings. They've talked about it. We've talked about it at city commission. It's on the city's website. It's a one-page application that you need to fill out. Normally the turnaround is less than a week when I get those applications in and review, and you can go down to Springfield Do It Center. There's 8 different colors that you can pick from, so it's not just all white. So yeah, I would love to spread the word and get more of these vouchers out there and help as many residents as we can. Richard, in all honesty, I want to run out of paint.
Yeah, right. Well, we want to help you do that. So let's be clear. The city of Battle Creek has a no-cost paint program. There are funds allocated. They're not infinite, of course, but there are funds allocated to help you get paint if you can't afford it. And as you heard Jason say, there's not a whole lot of requirements there. Say those requirements one more time. Which ones they are? There are not many.
There's not, and it must be owner occupied, and fill out the application and complete the work within 60 days. I talked with the owner of Springfield Do It Center this morning, and we've got 45-gallon pails ready to go. So here, as soon as the weather warms up a little bit, when we start kicking this program off, we are ready to tackle the problem.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Springfield Do It. So they're just waiting, and all you need to do is fill out that application, be owner occupied, and be ready to do the work in 60 days, and the city of Battle Creek will get you a voucher to pick up that free paint. Man, this is a tremendous resource, and hopefully folks will take advantage of this opportunity if they have painting that needs to be done in the city of Battle Creek. So if folks do want to reach out, Jason, and do as you say, use us as a resource, check in with us, find out about what violations might be out there on a home that you're interested in purchasing, etc., how do they find you?
Yep. So we are located on the first floor at City Hall down in room 117. You can call the office at 269-966-3387. We can talk to you there. You can get on bsaonline.com and look up specific addresses for enforcements and outstanding violations. But by no means do we want to be the enemy. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and when you're buying something that we know what we're getting.
All right, room 117, City Hall, first floor, or ring them up 966-3387. Jason mentioned that property resource site. We'll link that in the show notes for this episode as well, right on the City of Battle Creek website. These episodes are, or at battlecreekpodcast.com. If you prefer, you're welcome and invited to subscribe to the BC City Connection, where you get podcasts. You'll be alerted then when these new episodes come up. Jason Francisco, Code Compliance Manager, City of Battle Creek. Thanks for this information.
Thanks for having me, Richard.